And I request them to formally release the book now. I would request Sir Tully to take the discussion forward. Huh?
I don't know, is this working?
Yes.
Yes. Good. Well, I'm meant to think to be in charge of this lot here, but to try and control any of them will be... To try and control any of these worthy people sitting on this platform would be way beyond me. So I'll just start by asking Arun to make his presentation.
What time? What?
You don't need to. If you're more comfortable, yes, sit here.
I didn't expect that we'd have to give talks. I thought, anyhow, I can do no better in introducing Saeed Naqvi than to quote myself. So in the book it is that I know of no one in our generation who has written about the ways, values, beliefs, arts, about the very life that we share with each other, with knowledge as wide, feelings as deep, and commitment as enduring as Saeed Naqvi. And the one of my regrets of the Indian Express days is that I did not befriend him at that time. And he was a feared person. He used to be in Madras, and I was telling Farah just now that once, वो कहते कोई भी सईद नकवी से सईद से तो कोई भी डरा नहीं, आप कैसे डरे? अरे वो दिल्ली आता था, हम डरते थे कि क्या करेगा. एक बार दिल्ली आया, मैंने पूछा यार क्या कर रहे हो यहाँ? कहता मेरे यहाँ तीन उल्लू हैं, मैं सीधे करने आया हूँ. So one of the ulloos was a person like me. So we have got to over the time, I've got to greatly appreciate his writing. I think nobody has met as many international leaders as he has. His knowledge of the Middle East is a real education for all of us whenever he writes on these things. And this is a very important play. Not so much that it reveals what is under the surface about Hindu society and how it needs an outside cementing force. But also about his great knowledge and deep knowledge about this culture, about which he has lived, not only which he has written about. And I have many things to say about the current situation and the bearing of this play on that and of his whole work, but then that will become a lecture. So probably I'll stop there, and whenever you want me to speak on those matters, I'll talk to you.
I actually would prefer to have been sitting down, but as Arun stood up, I'd better stand up myself as well. It's very difficult for me to know what to say about this book also, because I've known Saeed for 50-odd years. We've been close friends. We've talked about all these subjects time and time again. And now here I am introducing his book. Let me start off by saying that when I began to read this book, I thought, oh no, not a film, not about a television company, and surely we have quite enough of that without having books thrust on us as well about it. And it took a bit of time for me to get into the book. But when I did really get into the book, then I understood that this book is saying many important things, not just one important thing. And I came to the conclusion that this was a very important play, I should say, rather than book, which would be very difficult to put on the stage, but I really look forward to the day when it is put on the stage, and I very much hope that will come about. And I have actually sent, or Saeed has sent a copy of the play to a friend of mine who's a very good drama director in radio in London, and I hope very much that this will produce some good result. Well, returning to the book for a moment, what strikes me perhaps most of all is the amazing knowledge that Saeed has. The way he can reel off lists of artists, lists of spokesmen, lists of politicians, and the way that he reels them off, and the brief descriptions which he gives of them. And that leads to a measurement of excitement, really, because you are introduced to these people and you feel you're really getting to know something about them. But on the subject of the book, well, there are, as Arun has suggested, many different subjects in this book. I just want to talk briefly about one of those subjects, which is really, as I understand it, the subject of values in politics, and the subject of trying to discover what are the values which can really be the values which will sustain India and which will enable a variety of people of different communities, different religions to live together. And I think that living together is in a way the essential element of the book to me, because that is the lesson I believe we all need to learn. And that is, to me, the main lesson of the book. And if you, as I'm sure you all will do, buy and read the book, then you will understand what I mean. And the interesting also is that this is not in any sense a sort of pious call for piety, for people to live together peacefully. It is an examination of the difficulties of living together, and a critique of the Constitution also, which I think is important. But in the end, and I don't want to spoil the book for them, but in the end, you will find there is a surprise for you. And that surprise is really what you have to, and I have to, all of us have to read carefully and digest and feel the fear, the need that we should overcome all the problems we're facing now, and we should learn to live together in peace and in harmony. That's really all I need to say, except one more thing, which is that I do hope you will all buy the book and you will all read the book and to realize that behind it all lies Saeed himself, who in a way is bearing his heart to you in this book. But I can assure you that a more genuine Indian than Saeed, I don't know. And I hope you'll all remember that when you read the book. Thank you all very much.
Absolutely. I will not speak long. I will thank the audience for having come here. I will thank Saeed for writing this book. There are many vile things about the media of which I am part, but the legacy that we have been left behind by people like Arun and Saeed and Mark is that we remain on first name terms in the newsroom. So I'll stick to that. It is important that we be told by those who can discern the change that we feel. I think it's important to bring the crisis of the present into this book. This event is about this book, but I don't think that we can either ignore the times that we are living through, nor can we ignore the basis for which this book was written. So I hope that the material that you may have left out in what you said can be brought in through this conversation. I'll start with you. And you begin the book by saying this idea occurred to you. You specifically referred to the idea of a play in '94. Why did you not write it then, and why have you chosen to write it now?
Thank you, Aakar. Thank you, Arun, Mark, for being here. Arun and I go back to the Indian Express, where we were not the greatest of friends. But as my mother used to say, बड़ा मजा उस मिलाप में है जो सुलह हो जाए जंग होकर. बड़ा मजा उस मिलाप में है जो सुलह हो जाए जंग होकर. So we had differences, and there are so many things about Arun that I admire. Mark, of course, has been part of our lives for 50 odd years, if not more. And Aakar, thank you very much for taking the trouble coming all the way. Your question, why did I write it now? It is because if you read the first half of it, it negates everything that I have stood for. I was careful not to, so many of my friends here, I didn't say things that might offend them. But over the years, I felt Ghalib has a wonderful couplet, लाग हो तो उसको हम समझें लगाओ, लाग हो तो उसको हम समझें लगाओ, जब न हो कुछ भी तो धोखा खाएं क्या. If I was an iota in your firmament, I was willing to fool myself that I mattered to you. But I realized that I really don't. तो ये धोखा, ये ब्लफ हम अपने आप को क्यों करें? तो कहो और ईमानदारी के साथ ये बताओ कि ये डिफरेंसेस क्यों हैं? Why do we differ? That is the analysis. And that is where the beginning, the first half of it, I develop it. I've created a situation where I can speak very harsh truths. But then, me gets the better of me. I cannot spill, my whole life's commitment. I'll tell you, until the 80s, I have relatives in Pakistan. They used to visit me and see my life. My brother Shanne is here, whose famous statement, he's come from Lucknow for this function. He went to Pakistan to see cousins, came back. I said, Shanne, how's it? He said, Biggie, they are nice people. They're all happy dodging around in their Toyotas. Nice place, too full of Muslims. Now, what he was saying that we've evolved, that there is a Zahid and a Muhammad and an Ashraf in our lives. And when they used to come over, they saw an Arun, a Ranjit, a Vinod, and then there was music, and there was theatre, and there was all the cultural thing that we'd shared together. वो कहती थी भैया हम क्या यहाँ रह सकते हैं 80s तक, late 80s तक. Or then you proceeded, used to show off. Then you proceeded to do things when now they fix me in a pitying gaze. This is what you've done. You see? That is why this was the time I felt. Now, but I've said something more. Communalism is not about beef. Communalism is not about love jihad. It is not about hijab. These are little things to keep the temperature. This becomes a big project when communalism is tied to nationalism. And that you do. That is why you need an enemy, Pakistan. The minute that collapses, I had brought a little prop, but I don't think in a discussion it works, to show you, to establish this fact. So Kashmir, love jihad does not get you what you want. Balakot does. Love jihad gives you the atmospherics, the atmosphere. But Balakot gives you the result of 2019. You see? So it isn't, that is all of that I have brought into the document.
But surely for many of us, and we could be wrong, the idea of Hindu nationalism imposed top-down is not new. The other aspect is, for those of you who might not know about what the book says, it begins in a newsroom one day with the Muslims of India and their legacy having vanished, gone. So that's where the book gets its title from. And there's an argument towards the second half of the book that examines what it does to the rest of society and what it is that Muslims have contributed to this composite culture. But to return to what I had asked, is there, because the book is so apocalyptic, is there something in recent events that has triggered the writing of it now? And if so, maybe know what it is that has disturbed you in the recent past.
I told you. I think I said it. This is, I have tolerated, look, you don't hate me. This communalism, this hate, I have never been persuaded that you can hate me. You don't hate me. This has been manufactured for political purposes. So therefore, and you don't even know that this is how it has worked. Why? Now there are two aspects of it. I don't want to hog, because Mark has to say something. Arun has gone he should be saying something. But otherwise, if you permit me, I will show you my little clumsy, very bad props.
Please do.
I will share them with you.
Let us be the judge of whether they're very bad.
And these props are here because I simply do not know how to do a PowerPoint presentation. I just don't know how to do it. So, my friend, the book was written. Where is Ramesh? Where is Ramesh? No, Ramesh is there in the corner. Ramesh is my secretary. A man called Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
I can put these up because I know what you're going to say.
Coleridge wrote a poem called Kubla Khan. This poem was written in an opium dream. If you listen, if you have read the poem, anything, even his in Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, it's not of this world. And Kubla Khan is in an opium dream. It's a particular incident. A man from Pollock came and knocked at the door, and he woke up, and whatever he remembered, he wrote down. It is one of the great debates in literature, but supposing that fellow had not disturbed him, then this dream would have continued eternally, and maybe it would have been so much that he wouldn't have been able to remember. So, therefore, that knock from the man from Pollock helped. He was able to remember. And what is the poem? I'll just recite to you. In Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure-dome decree, where Alf, the sacred river, ran through caverns measureless to man, down to a sunless sea. अब ये पूरी इमेज ओपियम ड्रीम है. ये बैठा हुआ था रमेश. वो मैंने कहा रमेश लिखो लिखो. And I started dictating. This is not in hand. So he said, he typed out, he said, ये क्या बक रहे हैं आप? मैंने कहा तुम लिखे जाओ. So then that is how the first half of the first chapter was written. I said, मुझे दो. That is how it actually evolved. Now to the two, what is the... भाई सीधी सीधी बातें हैं, इसलिए बुरा ना मानना, वो देना मुझे जरा. Thank you. Mark, ये था हमारे, I call it the theory of the interlocking triangles. Theory of the interlocking triangles. Now this is what I've created is some rough caste triangle, the caste pyramid. Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and the whole it goes down. It's a very clever, there's a device. Everybody has a whole series of people below them. So it's a very cleverly constructed thing. Now this has been, when the foreigners came, some conversions took place. A completely wrong history that they were somehow converted by the sword, they were not. There was the Sufis did the trick, and there was some conversion. That's not the issue. The issue is the constitution. This tight structure was exposed to Western notions of democracy, upward mobility, social justice, and it began to give. It began to give. And when it would have proceeded at what was called the Hindu rate of growth. But then in 1989, VP Singh threw this huge boulder in the pond called the Mandal Commission report. And that created the ripples and the tsunami, which was then countered. So this structure was wobbly. This structure was very wobbly then. So it had to be, that led to a desire and a tactic and a strategy to stabilize it. What was the strategy? Is simply find an enemy image, and that will then become the glue that all the various layers of this which are giving will be recomposed. And that will then also, additionally and much more importantly, this Hindu consolidation will lead to a Hindu nation. Now, how do we stabilize this? Now, here comes the second. Therefore, you have at the bottom, or go to the right, you have the New Delhi Srinagar line. In this triangle, you touch any one line and it immediately affects the other two. So if you, Srinagar, New Delhi, India, Pakistan, Hindu, Muslim, in my thesis, are one complex of issues. They are one, you touch any one line, and it will immediately, anyone who says he's charging out to Srinagar to solve a problem is telling a lie because he cannot. You will have to bring Pakistan into the bargain. The minute you bring Pakistan and this softens, then imagine these two lines having collapsed. Then the Hindu-Muslim equation, once relations with Pakistan improve, and you develop a national strategic interest in that relationship, then the Hindu-Muslim, then Hindu consolidation is hit for a 6. So you have this I call it the crisis of the interlocking triangles. Yeah. Yeah. So what I've done is that in my book, I have removed one triangle altogether. And I have left you with this. Now sort out the problem. And the problem is acute. The problem is acute. Therefore, but can it be restored? There is no other alternative. And it's very simple. Shall I tell you? You will not believe me that internally Indians don't hate each other. This is my belief. I've just come from Kozhikode, which used to be Calicut, and the organization which invited me is the most powerful newspaper in that region, and it's a Muslim-controlled newspaper. So this cow-built insecurity of Muslims should also not be superimposed on the rest of the nation, number one. There is a peculiar problem in what the British call the cow belt and what we call the Hindi belt. यहाँ की जो प्रॉब्लम है उसको नेशन पे सुपर इम्पोज करना गलती है. That's a mistake. Number 2, you are take out any currency note, every denomination is indicated in 17 languages, many of them with classical literatures predating Christ. This is your variety. And so cliché, which I hate to perpetrate, but we are multi-ethnic, we are multilingual, we are multicultural, we are multi-religious. To impose any kind of uniformity on this is an impossible proposition. So I'm absolutely secure in that knowledge. Yes, you will be destroying a great deal if you carry on. You should be in Thiruvananthapuram, as I was. You know, this discussion, they wouldn't understand the discussion. In Tamil Nadu,
why do you say that?
I used to imagine that this would happen in Bangalore also. But now Bangalore has changed.
Yes, it has. May I ask Arun to examine this argument Saeed makes that electoral politics in India requires the Muslim to be a source of traction and perhaps friction, and also to perhaps examine if that is what is happening now?
I just saw a note of Mark
It's on.
Mark's note that this is a discussion and I should not be giving lectures. But no, two, three things. I think one is, please do not look upon this as a very recent phenomenon. This is not not one that is going to, this is not a 19-month emergency. It is something that has been prepared for over now 98 years. In 2 years, the RSS will be celebrating 100 years. And it is going to last much longer than 19 months. So we must be prepared for that. And our difficulty has been that actually we have been living in very small circles of people like us. We have not been paying attention to what is being prepared. And what is being done now is exactly what they have been saying they will do. सिर्फ आर्टिकल 370 ही नहीं है, हर एक चीज में आप देखिएगा जो उन्होंने कहा वही कर रहे हैं. And we are surprised. Why? Because we have not been reading what they have been saying. That's the fact. And we have been so that is one problem. I'll give you an instance. I have seen for something that I was doing, I looked up about 10 books on secularism that was written in the 1970s and 80s. And especially there was a flood of them after Salman Rushdie's book, after Shah Banu's case, certainly after the demolition of Babri Masjid. There is not one book which analyzes the primary literature of the RSS. Not one single book which even refers to it. To even the writing, only 2 books of Golwalkar are mentioned in passing, or 1 or 2 passages are taken up. But there is a whole volume, I mean, his own speeches and writings are 12 volumes, वो आज मिलती नहीं है. हमने पढ़ी भी नहीं. And therefore, the surprise thing, similarly, in the organization, the manpower, it's not just an idea, not just of creating an enemy, but that you can sustain that and you can spread that message. ये सारे जो election के बाद result के यूपी में जी ये हो गया, there's so many analysis. Nobody mentions the one thing which the BJP or Mr. Modi has and no one else has. What is that? The cadre of the RSS. The senior leadership of the RSS matters for nothing at all. ये कहा जाता था कि जी अटल जी मुखौटा है, मेरी व्यू में आजकल मोहन भागवत जी मुखौटा है. Because the second level of the leadership has all been completely co-opted. And the cadre has been complete. They are instruments of Mr. Modi. So we underestimate that. हम इशू कांग्रेस में ये कि राहुल गांधी जाए ना जाए. अरे इशू वो नहीं है यार, इशू ये है कि उनके पास कोई काडर नहीं है. ऊपर से आप कुर्सियां रीअरेंज करते जाइए. इसीलिए मैं and this is done very systematically. See, for instance, when we think of reaching out to people other than us, वो ये क्या है कि भाई लैंग्वेज में पब्लिश हो जाएगी चीज़. But actually we are addressing each other. We have never thought that we must reach, we think influentials को reach out करना चाहिए जी. तो बहुत एक lateral thinking होगी कि भाई teachers are influential, so we should reach out to teachers. मगर हमने कभी नहीं सोचा कि साधु को रीच आउट करिए, मगर उन्होंने किया। 1940 से वो कर रहे हैं। So इसलिए, and those sadhus are really chaps who are among the influentials in our society. So I think that we must study we must study this. It's a much more serious problem than just an idea or just something done for electoral purposes, as Akhtar was just saying. Could be an enemy create kar diya. No, it is a regular preparation, and we must understand that. We must understand the techniques in doing this also. As you said, that the hijab and all, it is to keep the temperature up. But just see, some fringe man is asked to say something with plausible deniability. Oh, yaar, wo to baat hi aise karta hai hamesha. But it becomes the new normal. Over time, then somebody else repeats it, and we don't study the implication of that. आपको मैं एक छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूँ। अभी फंक्शन था, तो नरेंद्र मोदी ने एक सेंटेंस यूज किया, which is a sentence used by all the big people of the RSS for ages since they were founded. कि भाई हमारा ये जो राष्ट्र है, हिंदू राष्ट्र है, ये तो पुरातन राष्ट्र है, हजारों साल से चल रहा है। उसका इम्प्लीकेशन हम समझते हैं कि भाई ये है कि अच्छा चलो इस्लाम तो फिर आउट हुआ, इस्लामिक इन्फ्लुएंस तो आउट हुआ। नहीं, मैं और भी उसका एक है, छोटा सा मैं आपको एग्जांपल देता हूँ। मोदी साहब ने ये चीज़ रिपीट की कुछ दिन at that function about this war memorial and so on. No, the function of installing that hologram of Subhash Chandra Bose in the India Gate के आगे canopy कि तो पुरातन देश है, और उसकी implication एक छोटी सी implication, अगर पुरातन देश है तो गांधी जी को father of the nation कैसे कह सकते? But this was said not in now, it was said in 1949, immediately after Gandhiji had been killed. Father of the nation. हम तो 1000 साल से चल रहे हैं. Panditji is not the problem, but Gandhiji is a problem for this new system. So the erasure of Panditji will be followed by the erasure of Gandhiji, and a stray statement, we must see the implication of that for that particular design. And that we don't see, I feel. In the similar thing, I think we should certainly, we should reach out and do all those things, but we should not live in hope. Hope is always the policy that somebody else will do it. So Saeed Naqvi का जो play है, उसमें you please enjoy it, but don't rely on it. Not only that it will turn the tide, not only that, but that its message कि भी हिंदू सोसाइटी में divisions हैं, अगर मुसलमान नहीं होंगे तो वो divisions will save us. No, they will find some superarching purpose. Sorry.
I just want a little bit to ask you a question that many of us have passed over. Was there something nascent and dormant in this society which impulse was squandered by the system? Why is that in the first class posts of 40% vote in all of the large parts of it continues to remain the party that can, for many of us, be seen as demonstrably incompetent on the temporal side of politics and governance?
I think that is, yes, that is dormant. You scratch anybody, you can turn anyone into a fundamentalist of any variety. But that's realistic, you to use the word, but that's the fact. Which is the community in which they have not been a little bit of goading, and they have become like that. America has just shown us under Trump. We don't have to go to great examples like Germany under Hitler. It is well documented that, for instance, the vast, overwhelming majority of Germans participated in some form or the other in identifying Jews, for instance, land records, in finding generations. And it all happened over a period of 10, 12 years. And it was the most developed society. It was the very high, the most, what do you call, literacy वाली उनकी बहुत ज़्यादा indices थी. So ये इसमें हमको वो नहीं करना चाहिए. आप पाकिस्तान की ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन ही देख लीजिए. कैसे हुई जिया के बाद. पहले जो डिबेट चलती थी, उसके बाद कितनी जल्दी ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हुई. Not just in the leadership, but in the Nawaivat and other, in the popular discourse. So हमारे यहाँ तो वही हो रहा है. It is the same dominant thing which is now being brought out. And we don't want to, we say, ठीक नहीं, it is not essential to India, it is not the essence of India, because we don't want to see ourselves in the mirror.
I should say, sorry, in defense of Pakistan, that they have brought back from Sharia into the penal code many of the offences that had been placed there under Zia, including the had hudud on fornication. Drinking has been read down. Nobody's been lashed in 3 decades. So far as I know, nobody's hand has been amputated. So it appears to me to be the case that they're moving back towards a Macaulay code while we...
That's a very important point. In the end, yes, the costs of that turn will be such that every society comes back. Germany has come back, but at great cost and after the long lapse of time. That's the problem.
We have it eternally within us to be able to return to, I'll just move to him in a moment, to return to what it is that you're referring to, or does it need an external impulse?
No, I think so. We can't depend on others to do our work. So whether it will all depend on how many people work sincerely, not just among ourselves, to counter this trend. It will require a lot of work, it will require facing up to a lot of problems, and it will depend on the mass of persons who put themselves to that task. बाहर से नहीं होगा. Costs alone will probably by that time have destroyed so much of India. Not just this idea of India business, but the territory of India. Persons would have been victimized, persons would have been killed. So, to give you an example, we cannot mobilize the masses, but influential people are here. Everybody has some friends. We must persuade these political parties, please, bloody fools, wake up. And the country is at stake. You are personally at stake. You keep complaining and issuing press statements about agencies being used against you. Why don't you now act on it? But more than that, act on these matters. Yashwant Sinha said the other day that it is a fight for idea, about ideas, about ideology, about the way we are to be. But then we have to fight that, and we have to reach out beyond our circle. That's the most important. मैं आपको एक छोटी सी बात बताता हूँ. I am taking too much time. मैं एक छोटी सी आपको बात बताता हूँ. RSS में रूल था. गोलवालकर के टाइम से रूल है. वो 33 years के लिए he was the head. That everyone who comes to the Shaka will make 10 friends, 10 new friends, and bring them into the Shaka. Now, if you do the compound interest, that's how Dr. Hedgewar had said that in 3 years, 1% of the rural population and 3% of the urban population must be attending Shakas. They must become swayamsevaks. That's compound interest. 1% making 10 friends and bringing them into the Shaka. मगर हमारे देखिए कितने नए friends बनते हैं. कितने? बहुत कम. हम एक दूसरे से, and we are quite satisfied venting our anger at the current situation to our friend. That's all. So इसलिए.
Mark, I had a question for you, but did you have a comment on what he said as well?
I would anyway one very that is that yes, I agree with a lot of his there, but I think also we have to remember that many of the things you talk about are to be seen, what you mentioned in Germany, but also in countries like Turkey now, for instance, and other countries as well. So they're not all uniquely Indian. But what you said about making friends, about that we should be pushing out, not just sitting, discussing, I absolutely agree with that completely. I am meant to be in charge of this situation, but clearly I'm not. I think the time has come when we should ask for questions from the floor. But,
Just before that, I had one for you, and you are the only real insider here who also has an external eye. And I think it would benefit us to know from your decades in India whether what you have seen in the last 30 years, generally speaking, but specifically in the last 8, represents some sort of departure, and if so, what that departure is.
well, very briefly, yes, right up until 2014, I was writing and saying that despite what IOTA and all that went into that, despite the BJP's success politically, I would quote frequently what Johnny once said, that the BJP is a saffronized Congress party. And that was my belief, and clearly things changed with the arrival of the Modi government. Now, can we have questions?
Indeed. So we will have somebody in the audience with the microphone. The gentleman here, please.
Question to Mr. Shourie. Yes, sir. So the Hinduism which is being promoted by RSS is absolute contradiction with Sanatan Dharma or Vedic values, as has been logically written by Karpatiji Maharaj against Guru Golwalkar's books. But problem is the majority of Hindus don't know the depth of their own spiritual values and culture, and they're getting carried away by this propaganda. That's another big challenge, how to deal with that.
Every ideology, every idea is vulgarized, and it is the vulgarized version which mobilizes great numbers. So, we can keep talking about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, but they also talk about Ramakrishna Paramahansa, and it's very interesting as to what it is in Ramakrishna Paramahansa that they see. And then they can therefore see that the real personification of, in this world, of Ramakrishna's ideals was Vivekananda. And Swami Vivekananda said in the interview in Prabhupada Bharat that every new convert is not just one Hindu less, but one enemy more. इसलिए घर वापसी भी हम पढ़ेंगे ही नहीं, तो यही नहीं कि भी हमने सनातन धर्म को नहीं हम जानते, पर हम उनका डिस्कोर्स भी नहीं जानते. अब इस चीज को काउंटर करना है, so you have to therefore question Swami Vivekananda, and you must be prepared to do it, and you must have the authority to do it in the eyes of those who are being mobilized by them. So it is a difficult task, but it is a task that is made even more difficult by our complete ignorance. It's not just that the people don't know Sanatan Dharma, my friend. We don't know this Sanatan Dharma. Therefore, we are not able to answer.
Thank you. Maybe sort of alternate between the two sections of the audience and have one question from here and one from here.
Good evening. I'll try to make it as direct as possible. Hitler succeeded big time, but the world found an answer to Hitler. The preparation time for Hitler, because if you read Bismarck or about that time, whichever the late 19th century or whatever, then there was very little of what was to come in Hitler's time. But in our case, like he pointed out, it has been on for a century. So are we in for far tougher times, is my question.
May I just ask all three of you, starting with you, Saeed, to answer that? Are we in for tougher times than we have lived through in the last 8 years? Will it be more of the same? Will it get better in the near future?
See, part of the... I do not know the answer, but I'll try. Part of the problem has been the screen which we believed, and when that screen was removed, is what we have now. The delusion we lived with was the Congress Party. You see, the Congress Party, the difficulty with, there's a difference between tact and a lie. We were hypocritical about certain things. For instance, I would ask various people when things were deteriorating, कि भाई तुम्हारी कांग्रेस पार्टी में मुझे सेकुलर बताओ कौन है? जवाहरलाल नेहरू. अरे मैंने कहा वो तो हम जानते हैं, कोई दूसरा बता दो. क्यों नहीं? जवाहरलाल नेहरू. तो भाई एक और तो होगा नहीं, इंदिरा गांधी. लेकिन इंदिरा गांधी ने तो जम्मू इलेक्शन में बिल्कुल जाफरान हो गई थी वो. नहीं, देखिए वो कंपल्सरी. ये the hypocrisy of the whole thing, the national movement, we believed. I feel cheated because we are great Nehruites. I mean, I come from an area where Jawaharlal Nehru का घर में नाम नहीं ले सकते थे हम लोग. Jawaharlal Nehru, क्या, says the grandfather? पंडित जी, पंडित जी. लेकिन धीरे 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 disillusionment जो उसी एरिया में हुआ. Anyway, I'm getting, elaborating it too much. But the fact of the matter is that there was always, don't forget, that the president of the Congress party 4 times was Pandit Madan Mohan Malaviya, who was the founder of the Hindu Mahasabha, and which has a cousin, if not a brotherly and sisterly relationship with the RSS. You see? So therefore it was always there, within the Congress party. And he's not the only one. So that has been a huge, big letdown to revert to. And Arun, I absolutely agree with him, that we do not know what the other person is thinking, where he's coming from. We think that we have, we speak in the English language a few clubs here and there, and we've come to a conclusive argument. We don't know. He's right. In fact, we have to find out what is going on at the grassroots level. लेकिन वहाँ पे अरुण मैं ये कहता हूँ कि मैं grassroots इसलिए कि I've kept my touch with the rural area and I must say, I keep traveling. You know, the native Indian is not. अब ये the difference here is you are saying they have the cadres. And those cadres can mobilize anything. I'm saying that the villager I know in the whole range of India, particularly in my area, he is a completely, inherently secular person. Don't disturb him with his puja part. That is his. और वो आपका नहीं disturb करता. यहाँ पे एक problem है. और मेरा conclusion इसमें ये है अरुण कि that communalism, again a word profaned by common use, but communalism is a political project and you endorse that. You in fact underline that for emphasis. By the RSS has been doing it for over 90 years. So communalism is a project, political project. But caste is an ancient social habit that when politics is used to consolidate the castes, and you know what happens? The fellow, if you remember that character in the Godhra riots, he's wearing a bandana, holding a knife, sword. He's a mochi by caste. And he ultimately was found out, and they put him together with another person in a seminar in Bangalore, I think it was. You remember that? Now what happens is that you have introduced him into the Hindu infantry, and he believes that he's come up. So he gets back, his son gets married, he comes home like every bridegroom does, on a horse. वो गांव के अंदर जैसे ही घोड़े पे आता, अरे साले देखो, अब घोड़े पाई हैं भैया, समझे? टांग तोड़ दो घोड़े की टांग तोड़ दी जाती है, वो उसका हाथ तोड़ दिया जाता है. So this is now all of this will be managed by cadres, and don't forget, Arun, the cadres have been trying, say in Kerala, so from the days of Karnakaran at least, if not before, not one seat. Not one seat.
Good people keep watering the grass roots and somebody else cuts the grass and walks away. The real problem. क्योंकि देखिए यूपी में अभी क्या हुआ, पोलराइजेशन भी की गई, मगर कास्ट पॉलिटिक्स, कास्ट इक्वेशंस भी बनाई गई दोनों. So it is not there is a way to subsume. It's not that one save us from the other. That is the point that I wanted to suggest. But if I may just return to that question of things becoming worse, I think these comparisons with Hitler are too grand. In a sense that they defeat the argument. Hitler's evil itself was at a much grander scale. So don't think, abhi Hitler nahi bane. That is no consolation. The answer to the question whether the coming years will be worse or not is definitely there, and it is in the proximate things that we see. For instance, there is now a new normal already. Indeed. For instance, आपने कब देखा है कि भी फॉल्स एनकाउंटर में कितने लोग यूपी में मारे गए? कोई मारा जाता है तो अभी कभी फ्रंट पेज न्यूज़ हुई? 20-30 साल हुए ही सिर्फ ब्लाइंडिंग की जाती थी, लोग मारे नहीं जाते थे, मगर इट वाज फ्रंट पेज न्यूज़ एंड इट ब्रॉट मिस्टर जगन्नाथ मिश्रा इनटू ग्रेट ट्रबल. नाउ इन दिस लर्नेड ऑडियंस, I don't think how many of us can remember the precise number of people who have been killed in false encounters in UP. Amnesty International person accepted. But in general, similarly, the fact that now this is the normal means that more of it can easily happen or will happen. The fact that institutions are now being used every single day against anybody, that means, and there is no check. There is no surprise. Therefore, why will they not be used more tomorrow? And in the same way, I think the textbooks are to be changed. History is to be rewritten. The fact of the matter is that apart from our reading Aakar's columns or somebody among ourselves, there is no resistance to them. In the academic community, there is no resistance at all. So why will it not be done? And therefore, the answer to your question is, yes, things will be much worse because the train is hurtling down in one direction, and unless it is checked, and you have to see what are the things that are required for checking it, what each of us can or will not do, that is the answer. In that is the answer.
Mark, can you prophecy for us the near future? Where is it that we are headed? And by near future, I mean about a decade or so.
I would just say that I would agree with what you say, Arun, that already you see the difference. After the first government, Modi government, I was told by an RSS man that this is the most self-satisfied. Sorry, I was told by an RSS man at the time of the latest election that this is the most what we have seen is most self-satisfied government we've had. That it's done nothing really to complete our agenda at all. So what you see immediately, the next election is over, they say, right, that's the feeling, so we'll show them, and you get Kashmir and various other things, but particularly, obviously, Kashmir. And I'm sure also that all this type of government, this type of personalized government, Modi type of government, depends very much on keeping the ball rolling. It's very important for them to do that. And keeping the ball rolling means you have to go from one bad thing to another bad thing, basically. And that's why I would agree with Arun. But I don't know whether anyone else wants to ask a question.
May I ask that we address the gender imbalance on stage, for which I apologize, as we all do, and only have women answer questions, ask questions, and please tell the men why they're wrong. No, and tell us why all of us are wrong.
When I have, in fact, 2-3 questions, basically arising from all that has been said till now on the stage. But let me start. I just quickly keep it as short as possible. Mr. Naqvi said that Madan Mohan Malviya was a product of the Congress party. Is it? Yes, indeed, he was. Yes, indeed, he was. And my old friend Jaipal Reddy, late lamented, used to say that the Congress was relevant till the time it was an implicit coalition of ideas. He used to always say that the Congress was the first coalition that came to power after independence because it had space for all ideas which made India of the time. This is one question, that is, if any party goes back to that model, can there be a corrective? Secondly, we have talked about caste and religion. The BJP's success, at least in these elections in 2019 2022 UP elections, what we see is that they transformed a welfare state into welfare Hindutva in Uttar Pradesh. It was that they coalesced the two stands, the religion and the class. It was brought together. Even those people who had problems about the party's ideology or the way they were othering a section of the society, even they went along with them because they were beneficiaries of their, public outreach, their, this social welfare programs, their SOPs. Now, how does one? Yeah, Now, my question is that first question I asked already, that can there be a political party which can replicate the Congress of the old time, and will it be effective in the present situation? And second, how does one counter a political party which is in power, controls the media, controls the discourse thereby, and doesn't allow a counter narrative to emerge?
Second, Saeed, can there be...
Vinod, there does not have to be a replication of the Congress. There was always the Congress, then it was the real battles were fought in the regions. The regions fought the battles. There is a fear. There's an Indian ruling class fear that it should either be one or the other ruling class party. Anything else confuses a whole series of the establishment, that it has to be one or the other. It needn't be that. The next round is going to be, the battles are going to be fought in the regions. At the moment, I hate to say this, at the moment the Congress is holding up, it is creating a traffic jam. There should be a little mobility and see what kind of a cohesion can be coaxed out of the diversity that the political system is throwing up in the regions. This business of keeping, Mamata used to say something very interesting. Rahul, she said, is a Modi USP. It was amazing. I don't know whether you go back to the days when Arnab Goswami was doing programs on the Times Now. A great desire was to pose Modi, bring Modi against Rahul, so that the game is Rahul versus Modi, in which naturally the media is allowed, not exceptions. I'm not talking about the exceptions, and there are fantastic exceptions. That by and large, the media plays up, and the establishment encourages playing up of the Gandhi family, for instance, play them up because they will never ever be a danger to me. You see, because they are holding up the traffic. There is no movement in the system. Because where is the alternative to Congress? Of course there is not. It will evolve, and this fixation of ours, this two ruling class parties, Tweedledum, Tweedledee, that will have to end. That will end. And as far as Arun were here, there he comes. Good news?
Has can be countered. Is there a physical way possible for the opposition to have some elements of media back them in what appears to be a fairly one-sided contest so far as the popular media goes?
Well, very briefly, I would say I do not accept the comparison with the media now and the media in the emergency. I don't think it is like that. And I think it is possible for courageous media institutions to survive, and indeed they are surviving, some of them. But of course, there are two things I'd say. The first is that the majority of media organizations are swallowed up by the ideology of this government. Second thing is, well, of course, one nowadays has to always take into account the social media as well and what they are doing, and the efficiency of the BJP social media is unrivaled in this country, and there's no sign of anyone, I don't think, coming up with ability to match that.
May I ask you to speak on the same point? Have we, as the media in this country, surrendered because of the carrot and stick approach of the government, DAVP ads, or have we voluntarily submitted to a majoritarianism with eyes open?
I think we are rationalizing our greed by saying we are submitting to an ideology. It is money. It is not not just DAVP ads. I mean, much larger money in all this. But if everything is becoming very despondent, could I give two reasons for hope? See, मैं आपको बताता हूँ, मैंने एक नई किताब में मैंने एक उसमें कई स्टोरीज हैं रामनाथ जी की, तो उनकी एक बार मुझे मैसेज आया झंडे वाला एस्टेट से कि भाऊराव जी देवरास वांट्स टू मीट यू. बाला साहब देवरास के ब्रदर थे भाऊराव. ही वाज द टफ मैन. बाला साहब बाय दैट टाइम वाज क्वाइट इल. जी मैं मिलने गया और वो बस वो एक मंजी पर बैठे हुए हैं और एक लड़का है छोकरा सा, completely simple man but absolutely alert, very sharp, he knew this, that and the other. So when I came back तो रामनाथ जी ने मुझे से पूछा, मिस्टर रामनाथ गोइंका ने, तो कैसा लगा तुम्हें? मैंने कहा साहब कमाल आदमी, इतनी सिंपल लाइफ और इतना सब कुछ पता है। ये कि यही तो मेरी मुसीबत है, my editor doesn't know the difference between a good man and a good for nothing man. इसे देखो मैं तुम्हें बतलाता हूँ, मैं कि ये ऑस्टियर लाइफ तुम कह रहे हो, ऑस्टियर लाइफ, अरे कुछ नहीं है, ये ना मिली के साधु हैं, इनको छोकरी नहीं मिली इसलिए ये साधु बने फिरते। जब इनको सत्ता मिलेगी तब तुम देखना, सत्ता लेने के लिए ये क्या करेंगे और सत्ता मिलने पर ये क्या करेंगे। तो अच्छा, तो इसलिए क्योंकि ये वो they will do exactly what everybody does when he acquires power and wealth and therefore gets corrupted and therefore all the other consequences of illegitimacy and all follow. Therefore we can have hope in that they will also get what they are already getting corrupted. The fact that the RSS cadre has been co-opted doesn't mean that they have been co-opted ideologically. They've been co-opted by contracts and subcontracts and so on. But that is again relying on hope कि भी वो खुद ही खुदकशी कर लेंगे, इसलिए हमें कुछ नहीं करना. And the second point is that there is a reason for hope in this also, but it is something we can do. The question of whether we can counter the hold over the media. See, the established media is losing legitimacy. People are not voting for Mr. Modi because of the media telling them कि भी मोदी ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया. So I feel they are losing legitimacy, and it is a good opportunity for the other people to bring out the facts better. Social media पर उन्हीं का क्यों hold है? Each of us can be part of the social media. That is one of the things that technology today enables us to do. But we don't want to do that. We are just moaning and groaning. अरे यार इसका hold है. अरे भाई हम क्यों नहीं कुछ कर रहे? मैं आपको छोटी सी बात बताता हूँ. हम 200 लोग हैं. If each of us just takes up documenting, like as Aakar has done about the price of the Modi years, what each of us just documents one small fact. I had to file a petition against the misuse of the sedition law. And it took me time to try to collect where all have cases of, where has the sedition law been used. Till Shivanti Nayanan told me, no, contact Article 14. It must be a very small group, maybe 3-4 persons, who are following and documenting every assault on freedom of speech. What a good idea. Why can't we do it? It does not require any great organization, does not require a business house. So please select something, some aspect of this government or of the Congress party or whatever, but do that work diligently. And it will get known कि भाई इस चीज़ के लिए, and try, अगर यहाँ बहुत मुश्किल है, तो we can send that information abroad and they can put it up on the internet, so that that information becomes available. If Chinese dissidents can do it against the Chinese state, the fact that it is not being done in India is not because of the state, but because we don't do it. ये सर मोहम्मद अली ने, शौकत अली और मोहम्मद अली, उन्होंने कई चीज़ें कही, मगर एक ही चीज़ उनकी बहुत मार्के की चीज़ थी. उन्होंने कहा कि ये जो बेलगांव प्रेसिडेंशियल एड्रेस कांग्रेस पार्टी के प्रेसिडेंट, कि ये जो सब कहते हैं ना कि ब्रिटिश डिवाइड एंड रूल, बिल्कुल गलत बात है. ब्रिटिश डोंट डिवाइड एंड रूल, वी डिवाइड एंड दे रूल. So it is not that Modi has captured the media, but we are not doing anything about the alternate media, which is each one of us can be. In India, There's a medicine that has to be arranged. That is the problem. And so each of us can do something. Please take that from today's meeting. That will be one way to honor this gathering. Each of us selects one small item and follow that up diligently, document it as he has documented it in his book. It's not a difficult task. And then disseminate it on the same principle of one person sending it to 10 persons, sending it to...
We are 20 minutes over time. May I ask that only women either make a comment or ask questions. And may I ask this lady in the second row first be given the opportunity?
Before that, I had been waiting. I had waiting 10 minutes. You have to give me a chance.
Go ahead.
I'm going to a very important question I'm going to ask you. My name is Saeed Naqvi, and my question is especially addressed to Mr. Arun Shourie, sir. So because of your background in journalism as well as in politics. Sir, my question is, at present everybody knows what is the atmosphere of the country, how our Muslim ulama as well as the Muslim politicians, they are behaving with extreme restraint except some fringe elements. Now my question is not a question. I want to take your advice. Tell me what the Muslim community should do. What as a Muslim you want me to do so to make these things better in the country?
Thank you. Do you want to take that?
We should find also we should ask some wise men to answer the question.
Yes, indeed. This is for wise men, yes. Madam.
Well, I just wanted to make two remarks. One is Mr. Shourie had said that the sadhus should be conversed with by us, the civil society, but I don't think I should we don't want to bring the sadhus into the picture of governance at all. I don't agree with it, because in the Hindu almanac, the sadhus are the fourth stage of one's life. They should really renounce everything and do their own things in their mandir and not at all interfere in governance. Secondly, I have a lot of friends, Hindu-Muslim marriages, very happy marriages, extremely happy. And I think the government should follow the principles that these marriages, how they are so happy, Hindu-Muslim together, husband and wife. Why can't the government follow the principles that in this family that follows this kind of happy situation? They can keep the Hindu.
Did you have a question, madam?
I want Saeed to answer this.
Saeed?
Can the government make it a happy proposition by talking?
Make marriages happy, Saeed.
Marriages.
How does the government do that?
Marriages. I know a lot of families.
We can take one last question if the microphone is the microphone. Nay, turn एक minute. What I will do is, I don't think we should be bullied into this. Let the panel decide who it is that can ask. Is there any woman in the audience who wants to make a comment or a question? Go ahead, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, sirs. Like you mentioned that we should do our own, take a piece of what is happening and work on it. So I am working on the protest that happened in Shaheen Bagh, and that's the topic of my dissertation. So one thing that we came across, one question that I'm trying to answer, is the sense of belongingness that exists around Shaheen Bagh. So if the protest took place in Shaheen Bagh, who does the protest belong to? Does it belong to just the Muslims of the Shaheen Bagh, or does it belong to the entire community, given the fact that the protest was about something that was threatening the secularism of the nation? So, and then you mentioned that how we are enclosed as a community and everyone sitting here should do their token of contribution towards bringing out the issues that we are facing as a society. So, sir, I would like to ask, how would we, when the question is asked to us that you are doing this because you are a Muslim, or like you are doing this because you don't support the government. So how do we counter the question of anti-nationalism or
Good question.
communalism
How
in
can
general?
Muslims counter the slur that is hurled on them every day that you're anti-national? Maybe all three of you can very briefly speak about this. Starting with Saeed.
What can I say? I mean, well, Arun, I think, has spread the whole thing very clearly that is their agenda. So they have rendered you speechless on that one, and they have set the agenda, and you say, no, you're wriggling against the wall. No, I'm not anti-national. My great-grandfather was here and he fought for the freedom. But all of that is an individual's argument. The general perception has been created. The miasmal mist has been hurled at you like this. So this is their control. The media is a problem. The media is a problem. If the media were not totally 100%, the mainstream media I'm talking about, the one that is part of the crony capitalism system, I cast my vote and then I'm become redundant because then the Ambanis and the Prime Minister's office and once upon a time the American ambassador, the three of them would decide. And we were all redundant. So, and the media took signal from them. And anything, what the lady is asking about on when I'm charged of anti-nationalism, what should I say? I do not have a forum. I can go out in my park and scream, no, I'm not an anti-national. Give me the forum. Give me the forum. Ask me a right. Let the debate be coherently conducted on these issues. They are not. That's it.
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer, and I certainly don't. I don't know the answer to it. I would
just hold your microphone.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know the answer to that one, except just to say that there are media channels where these sort of things are discussed. And where articles are written on this subject as well. We just, we should all be involved in efforts to increase the strength of those media outlets and perhaps start be involved in new media outlets as well. That's all I can really suggest, except, of course, also to combat this on the social media as well.
So, all this is very important, but one small suggestion I would have, especially to young people, and that is, apart from agitations, apart from doing things in the media, please do well in the professions. It's still not debarred. Don't do well because that will establish you as nationalists. Just do well because as individuals, you'll do well. When a Muslim cricketer, I'm just saying Muslim Christian cricketer does extremely well for the Indian team, he's not doing it as a nationalist, he's just doing it as a good cricketer, but it has an effect. So, similarly, an entrepreneur. Let us assume that, now we don't know, a Poonawala, in manufacturing the vaccinations, I'm sure the fact that if you tomorrow said that the Parsis are terrible people and they are anti-national and so on, people say, मैंने उसका vaccine लिया. So please do well in the professions also. All the avenues in the professions, you are right, the implication is correct, that they are getting closed, but they are not as yet closed. And one of the problems that occurred because of the partition was that the middle class was lost to the Muslims in India. A good part of the middle class was lost. That middle class has to get created much faster. And it will not get created by the leaders of the Muslim community and all this business, and especially those who are in politics or who are in the fringe of politics. No, it is just by doing well. So that is one small suggestion, apart from Shaheen Bagh and other things.
That's very important, what you said. Very important.
Yes, if I may say so, Naqvi is a good example. There are so many. No, it's a very important point. You see, journalism में, आज तक फिल्म्स में, कल बाइकआउट शुरू हो जाए मैं नहीं जानता, मगर आज तक फिल्म्स में, स्पोर्ट्स में, जर्नलिज्म में, Muslims or Christians were not shut out. Probably they are not shut out today also. Day after maybe. But these people became, symbols of success, of aspiration for some people. So probably do well in the professions also, as long as they are open. Thank you.
My two bits here, I will come to you, is that I find it embarrassing that Hindus like myself cast these slurs on an entire community. I think that is the question we need to address, rather than having Muslims regularly ask why it is that they are slurred. The slurs are being cast by this community. They should stop. It is not for the Muslim to defend herself on an accusation of which she is not guilty. It is for the community throwing the mud to stop doing so. And that is the real problem we have. We'll take one last question, sir, and then last question or comment, and then we'll close.
मेरा सवाल अरुण शौरी साहब से है कि अरुण शौरी साहब, आप तो संघ परिवार के बहुत इंटीग्रल पार्ट रहे हैं और बीजेपी गवर्नमेंट में मिनिस्टर और बीजेपी के एमपी भी रहे हैं. ज़रा हमें ये रास्ता बता दीजिए कि नरेंद्र मोदी से मुक्ति कैसे मिलेगी, और नरेंद्र मोदी से मुक्ति कैसे मिलेगी, और 2024 में क्या योगी आदित्यनाथ प्रधानमंत्री पद के उम्मीदवार होंगे? मैं आपसे ही जानना चाहता हूं, क्योंकि आप बहुत इंटीग्रल पार्ट रहे हैं.
नरेंद्र मोदी से मुक्ति कैसे मिले, और क्या योगी आदित्यनाथ 2024 में पीएम बनेंगे?
सर, एक्चुअली मैं आपका मेन पॉइंट है कि मैं इंटीग्रल पार्ट था. That is what you really want to say. नहीं, but actually speaking, I have not known the RSS integrally. It is my what you call deficiency. और ये मुझे रामकृष्ण हेगड़े ने वार्न किया था जब वो अलाइव थे और चीफ मिनिस्टर थे. अब पता नहीं 20-30 साल की बात हो गई कि भाई यू आर लुकिंग, और ये जो वर्ड गोविंद आचार्य के साथ एसोसिएट हुआ, उन्होंने यूज़ किया था मुझे कि यू आर फैसिनेटेड बाय, यू आर लुकिंग एट वाजपेयी, वो तो मुखौटा है, रियल चीज़ जो है वो भयानक है. बट आई डिड नॉट पे अटेंशन टू दैट. So I've not been an integral part. Yes, I was certainly with Mr. Bajpayee, and I can assure you Mr. Bajpayee would probably have not allowed this. Not probably, I'm sure that he would have found some way to get around all that is happening now. But कैसे मुक्ति पाएं, कैसे जितना काम हो सकता है उतना तो कीजिए, दूसरों से सवाल ना कीजिए. आप क्या करने को तैयार हैं एज एन इंडिविजुअल? प्लीज थिंक ओनली ऑन दैट. ईच ऑफ अस शुड स्टॉप थिंकिंग ऑफ व्हाट राहुल गांधी शुड डू, सोनिया, अरे यार वो क्वीन विक्टोरिया है, उनके बारे में छोड़ो कि भाई मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, मैं क्या कर सकता हूँ, मैं क्या करूँगा. उस चीज़ पर प्लीज़ फोकस कीजिए. नहीं तो ये बातें चलती ही रहेंगी, ये क्राउड्स छोटे से छोटे हो जाएंगे, ये कोई प्ले पढ़ेगा नहीं. सम पर्सन विल फॉलो मार्क्स एडवाइस एंड पुट इट ऑन स्टेज, और बस क्योंकि मुस्लिम नाम आया है और सईद नकवी मुसलमान है, उसने लिखा है, उसी के कारण एक धरना होगा, कुछ पत्थर होंगे, कोई पढ़ेगा नहीं. तो उस सिचुएशन को ना रोकने के लिए प्लीज डू समथिंग इंडिविजुअली योरसेल्फ.
Thank you to our lovely speakers, Arun Shourie, Tully, Saeed Naqvi. Thank you to all of you for having come here. And I'll hand it over to whoever's going to close it.
Good evening, everyone. It has been such an honor to be part of this wonderful event. On behalf of the India International Center, I would like to extend my heartiest gratitude to our esteemed guests. Many hands joined to make the event successful, and to acknowledge with appreciation each one of them may be a little difficult due to paucity of time, and I see people already leaving. I express a deep sense of appreciation and gratitude to all the eminent speakers for such an engaging and excellent discussion. Mr. Arun Shourie, Sir Mark Tully, Mr. Aakar Patel, and the architect of the book, Shri Saeed Naqvi. Thank you very much. Sincere thanks to all of you who are present here for making the time to be with us and helping us make this event a memorable one. Grateful to the publisher Penguin, especially Elizabeth, who put things together from the publisher side. Everlasting feeling of gratefulness and thankfulness to all my colleagues at IIC for their support. Some of